We're going to look at basically what God says about education. What's the purpose? What's the point of school? What's the point of educating our kids? Here in America, I think a lot of people would say, well, the purpose is to get a good job, to make a bunch of money. Like, that's just not the purpose of education whenever you look at God's word.
Try to build toward that answer. Whatever you want that answer to be for them, try to build toward that. And I really do recalibrate that throughout every year and even at the beginning of every school year.
Not every kid was meant to do the same exact thing, so not every kid is going to need the exact same training.
That's right.
And the only way to do that is to be present and be invested.
And you can do it, even if it seems impossible or overwhelming, because we've been there.
Yeah.
God makes a way.
God has a purpose in everything that he does, right? And I think that the whole point of learning, according to God, is well, it is probably no surprise that we're both very passionate about education. Homeschool mom, 6 kids currently, 5 of our own, 1 other that's joined us for this year. And I teach at a private Christian school, but it was not always that way. And just to be very transparent, we were not necessarily traditionally trained to be educators, right?
Nope.
Whenever I look at our life, I oftentimes think about Acts chapter 4, where the crowd is saying about Peter and John, what is it about these guys? These are unschooled, ordinary men, but they say, we can tell that they've been with Jesus because of the wisdom in their teaching. Not that I'm claiming that we have the wisdom of Peter and John, but I hope whenever people look at our lives, and certainly that we weren't necessarily traditionally trained to be teachers, that they would look at us and think, man, there's a family that's been with Jesus. Because quite honestly, we wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for the fact that we have spent time with the Lord.
That's right.
Right? And although we were not passionate about education, Kendra would tell you for sure that she was not passionate about education.
Many of my teachers would tell you that too.
We definitely are now.
Yeah.
It is one of our main priorities in life to educate the next generation with God at the focal point of everything that we do here in our home and at the school that I work at, for sure. And so today we're going to look at basically what God says about education. What's the purpose? What's the point of school? What's the point of educating our kids? And I think, so the first question that we need to ask is exactly that. What would you say the purpose of education is? Because especially here in America, I think a lot of people would say, well, the purpose is to get a good job, to make a bunch of money. Maybe if you're more ambitious than I was, it would be like to leave a legacy. I want a building named after me, by the time I go into eternity. And to that, I would have to say, like, that's just not the purpose of education whenever you look at God's word. I think that those could be benefits to the education, but that's not the sole purpose of why we send our kids to school or why we seek out an education for ourselves and for our families, right? Colossians 2:8 says, it's a warning for us, beware that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit according to human traditions, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. Man, whenever we first had our eyes opened to all of these things that we're talking about here today, this was one of the verses that really just cut me. Like, man, I was taken captive by empty deceit and human philosophy and traditions and all of these other things, and definitely not according to Christ. And so most of the last conversation, we talked about the errors of the public school, and that really encompasses and summarizes, I think, the state of our public school system. It's all about human opinion and human tradition, and not at all according to Christ. And so what did God have in mind whenever he created us? He created human beings as the pinnacle, the pinnacle work of his creation. And he gave us brains. He gave us brains to understand math and science, and he gave us creative drives in art and music and all of these different things. Why? Why did he do that? God has a purpose in everything that he does, right? And I think that the whole point of learning, according to God, is to know God and to make him known. Whenever we begin to learn, when we begin to research and investigate the world that's around us and how everything fits together incredibly perfectly, it should stir up this awe in God as this incredible creator who has intentionally designed all of these things for us to then discover. Yeah, and so American education used to understand this. Higher education used to understand this. Let me just read you a couple quotes. This first one is from Galileo, who's considered the father of modern medicine. He said, "God did not give us senses, reason, and intellect for any other purpose than to use them. The intention of the Holy Spirit is to teach us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go." This next one from Johann Kepler, who's considered the father of modern astronomy. "The chief aim of all investigations of the external world should be to discover the rational order which has been imposed on it by God." And one more for you by Leonard Euler, who's considered the father of modern mathematics. "To those who seek God by reason, mathematics leaves no room for doubt." So listen, all of these men who are considered fathers of all of the different academic areas of study, particularly I think we should focus on math and science, because a lot of times our secular education will say, well, because of math and science, essentially, we don't need God. But there was a time, not that long ago, 150 years ago, when all of our academic institutions were actually established on the premise that we want to educate ourselves to grow closer to God. As we discover how the world, again, is put together and we discover the minutia of this incredible design, it just brings us closer to God. And then we want to show and share how incredible God really is. That was the whole purpose of education. The whole purpose of education was and is, even though we've kind of lost sight of it, to know God, to glorify God, and then to help bring others into that same knowledge so that they can also glorify God. That's the whole point. So removing God from education is kind of like removing the sun from our solar system. You can imagine what would happen. Like, just because of inertia, the planets would continue to spin for a little bit, but then they're just going to break apart and fade off into destruction, right? And that's essentially what we're looking at with our education system. Mm-hmm. We've removed God 65-ish years ago or so, and things have still spun for a little bit, but things are starting to break down and break apart.
Yeah, for sure.
And into destruction is really the only end to that. Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Right? So you can't remove God from education.
No.
You just can't. He is the beginning. He is the end. He is the center focus of the whole reason and the whole point for education. I've said this before, but an education that is not centered on Christ is an illegitimate education that is going to crumble at some point in time. It just is.
Right.
And so another verse that kind of guides us here and guides us at the school would be Proverbs 22:6. "Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he's old, he won't depart from it." And so our purpose in educating the next generation should be training them. Not just saying, hey, you need to know these things and regurgitate these things, but we're actually training them to know God, to glorify God with the talents and the skills and the abilities that he has designed them specifically with, and then through those things to bring other people into the family of God. That's education. Mm-hmm. And so number one, and we'll start working down through some of these points of basically what is education, and share some testimonies about how we've done it and the fruit that we have seen from it. But number one, education has to start and end with God. And so I'll let you talk a little bit now, but how do you do that here with our kids?
Well, I mean, being able to talk about God is really important,
Start there. That's
which
a
you
great
can't
place to
do
start.
in public school. But I mean, it's really as simple, I think, as pointing out when the focus of your day and of your decisions is not centered around God. Just pulling everybody back. What's your heart posture? Who are you focused on? Are you feeding your flesh or are you feeding your spirit? Being able to have those conversations throughout the day, every single day, keeps him as our main focus.
Right. Yeah. And so I would add to that, to like intentionally training the kids to see how God is at the center of all of these things.
Yeah.
It would be really easy, even for us as teachers who were maybe brought up in the secular education system. It's really easy for us then to start to separate God from math or separate him from science and just do the work. Just do the workbook, just read whatever it is that we're reading, and not think about how it really does all point back to God.
Yeah.
It's kind of like reading through the Old Testament and understanding and intentionally thinking, how does this all point to Jesus?
Yeah,
Because
good.
it does. It'd be really easy to read through the books of the Old Testament and not consider Jesus at all. And you're going to come out with a completely different understanding of what you just read. God really just shows how incredible he is when you read through all of that and understand that it all points to Christ. And in the same way, whenever we study math, whenever we study history, science, whatever it is we're studying, with the intentional mindset of, man, how does this point to God? How does this glorify God? It really opens up your mind to, wow, like God is absolutely incredible. He absolutely is. Another thing I would say, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but whenever we're training these kids, understanding their biology is super important. Little kids, and then boys, I think even to a older age, are active, and they go. God didn't design us biologically to sit in a chair from the time that we were 3, 4, 5 years old and just be talked at.
No.
Like, that's not the way that God made us.
Right.
So we have to think about and be considering, okay, I know how God has made little kids. Now let's train them by utilizing how he has created us to learn. And so, part of that is just being active.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in America, we have really devalued playing. There's so many people who, and I think that at some point we were probably guilty of it too, who look at play as a waste of time. Stop wasting your time. You got to do this. You got to do that. When you really scale back and look at play and think about all the things that they're learning, it's really incredible. You can look it up. I mean, there's lots of studies that have been done on the benefits of play.
Yeah, a lot.
But something that God really impressed upon me was how they build confidence. How is your child going to build confidence to sit in a desk to do book work if that's the route that you've gone? How are they going to have confidence to accomplish anything or think that they can do those things if they haven't built it somewhere else? So there's examples all throughout your day, if you watch your kids play, of how they use their reasoning skills and their logic skills and they test their understandings. But I think about a toddler who wants to climb on some pillows. So just imagine a little kid, which we've seen, want to climb on some pillows. They start out with 3. They look at the pillows. They're like, I'm going to stand on this, be the king of the mountain. And then they get over to it and they're like, it's actually pretty high.
Too much.
Can't do it. They're not verbalizing any of this, but if you watch them, they're working through it. So then they remove 2 pillows. They climb up on one and they just get the biggest smile because they've problem solved. They've challenged their understanding of what they could do, what was possible. And then they got the reward after putting in the work of, I did it. I worked toward a goal and I accomplished it. They become more confident. And I think that a lot of kids in public school, at least, are learning how to listen and regurgitate. But that's not the same thing as problem solving. That's not the same thing as actually learning. You're not building a confidence to learn. You're building a confidence in regurgitation. So how many of those kids are going outside of their comfort zone on weekends off a screen and trying to figure out really anything else. I would be curious about those statistics.
Yeah, because if you're just learning to spit back the facts that you knew, that's great. If the problem that you are encountering needs the exact answer that you have been taught.
Exactly.
But if you're facing any other problem where you actually need to think through a brand new solution that you don't already have the answer to, that's where we're failing a lot of these kids by not teaching them to learn how to learn and to learn how to problem solve.
Yeah, it's one of the many reasons I think that we have a whole generation of basically quitters.
Yeah, because it's too hard. I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I give up. The other thing with the pillow thing too is typically once they've achieved that standing on one pillow, then they'll push their limits.
Yes.
Then they'll come back and they'll do 2 pillows.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back and they'll work up to that 3rd pillow that they thought that they could do immediately. But that's kind of, I think, what you were saying about building the confidence after the problem has kind of been solved. Even if they have to start a little bit lower than they wanted to, they're going to work up to
absolutely
wherever they're going. And so a long time ago, it was actually probably my favorite job aside from the job that I have now. I designed playground equipment, which was so fun. But we had been a part of a lot of those studies on kids and play, because that was obviously a lot of what the sales guys used to, sell all of the products that we were designing and making. But the benefits of play are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I would say, especially for a little kid, kindergarten,
absolutely.
1st, 2nd grade, they learn way more and way more effectively and efficiently just playing.
Yes.
Like, they would be better off just being allowed to play all day long.
Yes.
They would learn so much. And the things that they would learn then set up the foundation for then rapidly learning all of the other things.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not necessarily that they're falling behind. They're just building a foundation so that they can stack on that.
That's right.
Now, I'm not necessarily advocating, like, don't start teaching your kids ABCs or colors. Like, obviously, we do that too.
Our 2-year-old knows colors.
Yeah.
Because we've made it's fun. We've got all these fun educational things, puzzles, whatever. They're still learning, but they're playing while they do it.
And that's what I was going to say. So it's the way that you're teaching those things. I'm not just saying just go out and have fun and do whatever you want to do. Like, there's some intentional playtime.
Yeah.
And there's also some unstructured playtime.
Yes.
Right? Both, there are benefits to both of those things, but especially for little kids, play.
Yes.
And it's not just little kids though either. Like, there's absolutely a benefit to even up through high school. I mean, even as adults, like, get outside,
yes,
be active. Mm-hmm. There are different things, and I'm not a scientist, but I know enough to say confidently there are different things that God, again, has designed us, hormones, chemicals that are released, all of these different things that help to keep us balanced, that help to just naturally fight against stress and anxiety, and actually help us to continue to learn and be healthy in all of the ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that does not stop. At our school, there's plenty of time for even juniors and seniors to get outside. Like, they get a recess. Like, most schools don't do that.
No.
And we can talk more about that, but we have 1 day a week where we do life skills, where they're not even really in a classroom. They're doing hands-on stuff. Now, not necessarily unstructured play, once again, but getting out of a chair,
right,
out of a desk, get the nose out of a workbook or off of a screen, whatever it might be, and do things.
Yes.
Like, people learn, no matter what age we are, people learn by doing things.
Yes.
And so some of those things that we do with our students in that life skills programs, we teach them how to shoot archery, how to shoot a rifle, how to use a map and a compass, how to balance a checkbook, how to budget for a grocery trip. And then we actually take them to the grocery store and have them buy the food, bring it back, make a meal, do the place settings. We have 3 different units. We do an outdoor education, we do a household management, and then we do what we call a recreation discovery. But that's learning all of the things outside, again, fishing and
fire starting.
Fire starting is another one. Yeah, a lot of really cool things that the kids love to do. And then household management, obviously, when the snow is flying here in Pennsylvania, we got to come inside. And so we do a lot of household things. That's where the budgeting and the grocery shopping come in. We do laundry days. We do how you make different products. Like the last one that we just did, we taught them how to make their own chapstick. We taught them how to make their own warrior balm. We call it, basically like a pain stick. All kinds of different things where they're learning beneficial skills. A lot of times they learn things that they're really interested in and then continue to do it whenever they get home. Some of them have even considered making a business out of the things that we do. So we're generating all of those thoughts and all of those ideas that would not come if they were just in a workbook.
Right.
And just to close that thought, I guess, then recreation discovery too is also how we use our downtime to glorify God. The main purpose of that unit is basically what else can you do and not just be on a screen.
Yeah.
What do you do with your free time?
Right.
And so we take them bike riding. We have a board game day, all kinds of fun activities. But it really is, once again, it's learning. They learn cooperation. They learn teamwork. They learn how to communicate. They learn how to lose. Man, learning how to lose is an absolutely beneficial skill.
Real.
Learning how to win is a great skill to learn too.
It's true.
And so they learn all of those things through that program.
And they build confidence. They see what they can accomplish. Most kids aren't walking around thinking, I could make my own soap. This is going to save me money. It's probably not a thought that crosses their mind.
Yeah. But a lot of those things that we do really are easy.
Yes.
Like the chapstick that we just did, it took 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes to make chapstick.
Yep.
And actually probably less if you get really good at it. But you do a lot of those same types of things here with our kids too.
Yes. And they've grown in confidence about what they can do because they are making meals, or they're making salves, or they're making tinctures or teas, or, there's learning how to take care of themselves even when they're sick now, or their siblings. All of the things that make them less reliant on a system that was set up to make you reliant on it.
Right. And even, at 11 and 9 and 7 years old, they're talking about, well, maybe we could make this into a business.
Yeah.
So once again, not relying on the system, right? Our system says, go to high school, go put yourself $150,000 in debt, go into college, get a paper certificate, then go and apply to a job and see who will pay you money, right? But there is another way, to make a way on your own. I would say, obviously directed by God.
Yes.
But even now at such a young age, they're beginning to think, what could I do? Yeah, so I'd read this article recently that talked about the main 3 aspirations of younger kids, like what they wanted to do whenever they grew up. And it was teacher, doctor, lawyer, right? That was overwhelmingly the top 3. Why? Because that's what you hear in school. I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do whenever you grow up and go out on your own? Teacher, doctor, lawyer. Those I would probably say were the top 3 whenever we were in school too.
Yeah.
There's things like maybe you want to start a landscaping business. Maybe you want to start a bakery. Maybe you want to start a dog walking company. Like, I don't know. There's so many things that I would have never even considered.
Right.
Because they weren't discussed.
Maybe you want to be a homeschool mom.
Maybe you want to be a homeschool mom. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, like our girls have said that. Yeah, I want to be just like my mom. And that's an awesome aspiration to have. And so one of the things that I've said to our kids is like, just look around. Like, what else do you see people doing? There's guys out fixing the power lines. We have a veterinarian that we take our animals to. There are people that, we have read books from and learned a lot about natural medicine, which you could go to school for. Like, some of these things are trade schools. Some of these things you just kind of learn and do on your own. Mm-hmm. You can be an apprentice. Like, there's all kinds of different things that are not just simply graduating high school, going to college.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not, at least they weren't whenever I was in school. And the kids that I talked to who are now in high school, in public school, like, those things aren't talked about.
No.
It's teacher, doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
Right? And so even just being able to have those explorative conversations, I guess. And once again, what do the skills and abilities and interests that God has put in your heart, like, where would they lead you to?
Right.
We're not planning life just what do you feel like doing. It's always, like you had said before, always bringing it back to God being the center and saying, where is God leading you?
Right.
And a lot of times God is not leading you to be a teacher, doctor, or lawyer.
No.
Like, a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think them having the ability to make these individual decisions with God is super important. And having the understanding, teachers having the understanding that they are individuals is super important because, I mean, there have been so many testimonies even at Tyrone Christian Academy. There was one I think at the time she was a sophomore or a junior. I'm not sure. But we were at women's group and she was there. And she came up to me and I just asked her how school was going. And she said that it was amazing. She had never been able to make it on the honor roll before when she went to public school. And she said she just learns differently. She said she's a hands-on learner. And so reading things and following directions and all of those things have always been challenging for her. So she was telling me that math was her hardest subject for this, especially. And so she said that her teacher actually split the whiteboard in half to teach the rest of the students, I want to say the formal way, but the way that she was teaching them.
She split it in half. She just came in, busted it over. And
No, she put a line down the middle. I would assume. I don't know. She said split it in half. So I imagine she drew a line down the middle.
That's not what I imagined in my...
And I guess on the other side, I don't know how she wrote it, but it was in a way that this young girl could understand because she learned that she was an individual who learned differently. And she accommodated her. And she was able to make the honor roll. And she was so excited.
Yeah.
Even then, when she was talking about it, weeks had passed or months had passed, and she was still so excited that she was able to accomplish that with some help. And it helped her learn how she learns to be able to apply that going forward was super helpful for her. And I do remember actually her sister wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. They're very smart, all of them. And her sister got really great grades and was always very academic. And in public school, when she was in high school, they asked what she wanted to be. And she said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And she got criticized hard.
You can't waste all of your brains. You can't waste all of this talent.
That's right. Yeah.
Man, staying at home with your kids, I think, is one of the most fulfilling things for a mom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a waste of any talent. You're gonna pass all of that talent on to your kids.
That's right.
And it's not like that's your only role in life. I mean, you can still be involved in your community and
Absolutely.
other ministries, and there's plenty of ways to use all of those gifts and abilities that God has given to you.
I think a lot of people think I'm going to leave a legacy, and they think money and status and all of the things, but
right.
She's going to create a legacy for herself.
She's going to have an
in
incredible
her
legacy.
Generational family line.
Absolutely.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, having smaller classrooms, which typically Christian schools do, obviously homeschools do, are incredibly important because you can have that one-on-one time. It's really hard. It's really hard for a teacher to have a classroom of 20 to 30 kids.
Yeah.
And try to meet them on an individual level. Like, that's just not going to happen.
No. Not with all the restrictions they put on teachers now anyway.
No, for sure not. So, I mean, the cards are definitely stacked against public school teachers. Again, we're not hating on public school teachers.
No.
It is the system
Yes.
that is broken,
Right.
and either needs reformed or destroyed.
Yep.
Like, that's really where it's at. Yeah, but with teaching to an individual level, I think part of our goal should be, and it is for both of us, to instill a love for learning. Like, why is learning important? And obviously you start with a purpose. It's to glorify God. It's to understand who you are, who God made you to be, what God made you to do, and understanding Him and how we can glorify Him. But to then instill a love to learn, right? And with the public school system, typically it's set up to be taught facts, regurgitate information, mostly for the sole purpose of doing really well on standardized tests, because then that's how the school systems are funded.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have noticed, particularly with kids who have come to our Christian school from the government school system, is there's no understanding of, like, why can't I just use AI? Like, why do I actually have to think about it? It's way faster for me to just type in a question and I'll get the correct answer.
And a lot of teachers I shouldn't say a lot of teachers probably don't, but I would be interested to know if they know how to answer that question.
Yeah, right. And once again, it comes down to, you're not always going to have AI to help you.
Yeah.
Like, even if we're not in some kind of apocalypse scenario, which if we were, then if the internet goes down, like, what are you ever going to do? But even setting that aside, there's going to be things that come up in everyday conversation, in everyday life. You're not just always going to be able to say, hold on, let me ask ChatGPT. right? I think that there's a place for AI. I'm still working through that. I'm not exactly sure the ethics and all of that. But I think that there's a place for it, but it's definitely not to replace learning.
No.
Like, they are there as a kid to learn how to learn so that they can actually be successful.
Right.
Like, yes, GPT might be able to give you a quicker and maybe even a better answer than you were able to come up with on your own, but you learned nothing from it.
Right.
And there is a value in learning that we absolutely have to instill in all of our kids.
It's not just regurgitation. And I mean, just thinking about from a natural medicine perspective, I couldn't use AI for anything because most of the things that we do, it's just like, you can't because you're going to kill your whole family. Oh, buddy.
Because it's drawing off of a secular system
right.
that basically says God doesn't exist, natural medicine is not okay, all of these other things.
Right.
So behind the internet, really, for the most part, is a secular worldview.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even addressing that, but you're absolutely right. Like, if you're just taking the AI answer, a lot of times, I mentioned a lot of times it might be a better answer or a quicker answer than you could come up with.
Yeah.
No. But what you said is good. Sometimes it might not be.
It might not be. Yeah.
Sometimes it might not be the right
And
answer.
you're not going to know if you don't know how to learn.
And you would never be able to know.
Right.
Because this is just what the internet says. So I'm going to trust whatever it says.
Not let's check 15 different books that we have on hand to make sure that they all line up or.
Right. Yeah. So that's actually a great segue. I mean, we had a whole conversation about how important reading is in the learning process. But where did you say that the U.S. ranked, like, in reading?
I think it was 14th.
14th out of
like 30?
Yeah, 30 or 31. Or no. It was 14th out of developed countries in reading.
Okay. Yes.
And the 31 was where the U.S. ranked, like, in overall education.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the U.S. ranked 14th from that study that you found in reading.
Yes.
And 31st overall from developed countries,
yes.
just in education in general.
Yeah.
And we were basically saying we're obviously doing something wrong. Like, something needs to change, even from the secular standpoint. Like, when you look at the numbers, something is broken. Something needs to change.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with all of that, you kind of have like a philosophy, a question that you always kind of recalibrate yourself with just throughout your days, throughout your weeks.
Yeah. So I read or heard somewhere when we were first starting to homeschool, and I had no idea what that was supposed to look like, and I was very overwhelmed. Someone said, or I read, imagine that your kids are 20 years old and they're sitting around the table at a restaurant and someone asks them, you were homeschooled, right? What was that like? Try to build toward that answer. Whatever you want that answer to be for them, try to build toward that. And I really do recalibrate that throughout every year and even at the beginning of every school year, even so far as the atmosphere and aesthetic of our schoolroom. Is it cozy? That was one of the things that I wanted them to say in their answer.
Yes, everything has to be cozy.
Cozy.
Here. And they do. This is the way they describe it now.
It is.
But that goes way beyond just being comfortable.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that atmosphere then allows them to learn in wonderful ways.
Yeah.
But so how would you answer the question, right? How do you instill a love for learning? Like, how do you practically work towards having the answer that you desire for them to have 20 years from now?
Well, I've learned through homeschooling that my enthusiasm goes so far. And it's genuine too. I'm so excited to learn with them and watch them learn that it's just become fun here, pulling out books and seeing what they say and finding answers. And there's a lot of praise given here too. Way to be resourceful. Good job. And I don't pretend that I know all the things that I don't know. We look into things together. And that created an environment for loving to learn, along with them reading everything that they can get their hands on, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, and I think that these are great things. Like, we obviously know not everyone listening to this conversation is a homeschool mom or a teacher, right? But you also are. Mm-hmm. Like, regardless, even if your kids are in the public school system, or if you're doing some type of other education online or something, like you're still their primary teacher.
Yes.
And we'll get to that more in a minute. The Bible backs that up. But yeah, I would say, especially for younger kids, encouraging them, if you can get excited to learn, like whatever you're excited about, they're going to be excited about.
Absolutely.
So if you're excited about reading and you're like, hey guys, let's read this book before we go to bed or whatever, they're going to get excited to do it. Yeah. Even cleaning. Like I remember when our kids were little, we were like, hey, let's make this fun. We would make up songs and it was way different. Like if you tell your kid, clean up your room, as opposed to, hey, let's make a game of cleaning up your room. Like there's going to be a drastic difference in the way that they respond to you.
Yes.
So if you want to instill a love for learning, act like you love learning.
Yeah.
Act like you're excited to learn new things.
Right.
Show them what you are learning, even if it is, on your phone or something sometimes. But show them what you're learning outside. Show them what you're doing in the garage. Show them what you're reading in the book. Show them what you're learning from God's word and be excited about it. And they'll be like, hey, I'm excited about learning too.
Yes.
And then whenever they get a little bit older, especially, I think there's incredible value in showing them and telling them how what they're learning now is going to benefit them later.
Yes.
Hey, listen, I know that it's going to be a little bit more work, but this is how it's going to set you up for the next phase of your life.
Yeah.
After you graduate. And also, if they know kind of the path that they're on because they've been prayerful and you have noticed the skills and abilities that God has given to them, and they're actually working towards a goal, you can say, listen, I know that you're working towards this goal. Here's how it's going to help you achieve that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they don't connect those dots.
That's right. That's right.
Oftentimes, I think we don't give little kids enough credit for how much they can learn. And I think we give older kids too much credit for what we think that they should already know.
Yes.
There are so many conversations that I have with teenagers where I start to get frustrated and I'm like, how have you not put this together? But the Lord reminds me, no one ever told them.
Right.
Like you have to teach kids how to put these dots together. A lot of times they are just in the moment. They're not thinking about what they're doing in the moment and how that will affect them 5 years from now.
Right.
But if you tell them and you continually, again, train them to think about the long-term goals or the long-term benefits, then they begin to like, oh, how does this affect tomorrow?
And they become more motivated.
And then they become more motivated.
Yeah.
Right. It's not easy. It's not easy to continually walk them through that process sometimes, especially when you're like, haven't we had this conversation like 5 times this week already? So we need the Lord's help in staying patient and calm sometimes, but they'll get it.
Yes, absolutely.
They'll get it for sure. And so, once again, parents, you are responsible.
Yes.
Like it's a commandment from God. Deuteronomy 6, verse 6 and 7. These commandments I give to you today should be on your lips. Impart them on your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down at night, when you wake up in the morning. God basically says, number one, that's education. That's education right there. Talk about me and the things that pertain to me. And then he says, how often to do it? All the time.
All the time.
All the time. When you wake up, when you're going about your day, when you're laying down at night, all the time, talk to them or talk to your kids and instill all of these things that I have told you. But parents, that's on you. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you're a homeschool family, you know that you've taken all of that responsibility on you. But no matter what other system that you place your kids in, like those teachers, yes, they're there to aid you. They're there to help you. But there's only so much that a school of any sort can do for your kids. Like you are still, once again, their primary teacher, their primary leader, their primary example. What you get excited about, they're going to get excited about. And you need to take that commandment from God seriously.
You will have to stand before God one day and answer for how you stewarded your kids. Whether you're giving some of that responsibility to somebody else or not, the bulk of their eternity, the majority, all of their eternity, I guess, at least for their childhood, is really how did you steward that time?
Yeah, right. Well, coming back to Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that they should go. So have you? It's perfectly fine. Some of us need to outsource some of our responsibility,
Yeah.
right? But I would say again, if you've outsourced their education to the government school system, is that pointing them in the direction that they should go? Obviously, we would overwhelmingly say no, and so yeah, you're going to have to answer for that one day. But in general, Western society is set up to weaken the family.
Yes.
Like, we have all of these lies that have convinced us, no, it's fine. You're not responsible for your kid's education. You're not responsible for your kid's eternity. Like, just have kids, have fun. They'll figure it out, and everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's basically
go to their
the way
wellness visits. Make sure that they go to school. Make sure they get a good job.
Yeah, their wellness visits. Yeah, as long as they get a good job, make money, then you've been successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not God's standard.
No.
It's really not. But again, in our Western society, there's so many different things that have been designed to tear the family apart, because that's the way that God designed it. God designed parents to have kids, to train them in the way that they should go, to teach them the things about heaven and all of these other things. So there are now demonically influenced human systems that are doing exactly the opposite. When you look at most of human history, how did kids learn? They learned from being at home. They
Yep.
learned from literally watching their parents. Girls typically would stay at home with mom and learn how to run the house, and boys would typically go off with their dad and they would learn a skill. Now, I'm not saying that everything that happened in human history is necessarily exactly what God's plan is for family or for people, but I think that we can look at it and say, for the most part, we were pretty successful
Yeah.
in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the major benefits, I think, of having kids with their parents, although you're right, human history didn't get everything perfect, is that you get to have real conversations about real things that you need to have conversations about. Even honestly, at Tyrant Christian Academy, I remember you had a conversation, or maybe you have this conversation every year, about sex, even with the students. Biblical, what does this look like in Scripture? And
Yeah, not like the health education
Right.
concept, like the spiritual, two flesh becoming one, creating this what we would call a soul tie, right? The spiritual aspect of sexual relationships and why that's important to understand.
And a lot of the parents were like, yes, please have that conversation. They're necessary conversations. And I mean, I get the benefit of doing the health. Well, I mean, every parent should really be having that conversation, the health class conversation about sex
Yeah,
with your kids.
probably at like third grade. Unfortunately, that's the unfortunate reality that we're in because of screens. Like, we have invited all of this stuff into our kids' lives way earlier than they are ready for it, and
Yeah.
way earlier than we ever had it whenever we were young, because we didn't have YouTube and social media and all of these other things that are putting stuff in front of kids at whatever age they are
Exposed to it.
using those online things.
Right. Although I will say, I guess our kids have asked some questions. Mostly, how did babies get in there? Once you have siblings, you do have some questions. And a piece of advice that I heard once that I have held on to throughout parenting was, if they're ready to ask the question, they're ready to hear the answer. And that's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll probably have a whole conversation about, like, how do you have all of those hard
Yeah.
conversations. I think that would be great to talk about. But the main point that we're making here in this conversation is having them in an atmosphere where those questions are welcomed.
Yes.
They're not made to feel shameful for asking those things or having those thoughts, or they're not made to feel like, well, I don't have time to answer it. That's not important. Like, if it's important enough to them to come and ask their teacher,
Yeah.
or to ask you,
Yeah.
like, take the time to
Yes.
answer those things.
Yeah.
And so whatever educational environment they are in, I think it's got to be one that welcomes those questions and welcomes learning about the things that they are thinking about, that are going on in culture, that are going on, in their home, in their church, whatever it might be. Like, so there's not really any question that's off limits.
Right. Yeah. I think another benefit to if your child has to be in a system type of education, even a Christian school, as opposed to homeschooling, that makes it more like a family atmosphere is discipline. Because I think that discipline molds more responsible human beings.
Absolutely, it does.
And it seems as though the teachers at the public school do not have a lot of freedom in dueling out punishments or disciplines, where I know your school does. You don't take things lightly. You're holding kids accountable, parents, families accountable, which is the way that it should be, which is the way that it should be even at home. There should be discipline. There should be far more discipline in many homes than there is.
Yeah, listen, that's God's plan. You can't read through Scripture and not talk about discipline.
No.
And we've talked about this a little bit, but literally, I forget where it's at, maybe Leviticus, it talks about if a son or daughter disrespects their mom, take them out back and stone them to death.
But yeah.
Well, but that's really
Exodus.
harsh.
Yes.
And you read that and you're like, oh my goodness, if this is the way that we lived. Now, from what I had found in all of my research, I could never find an actual account of that happening, but like that was the law.
Yes.
So maybe it never happened because kids didn't respect their parents.
Yeah.
Didn't disrespect their parents.
Yeah. It was in Exodus, actually, because our girls just read through that. And I remember them both coming and being like, I'm really glad we don't live then. Not that they're super disrespectful, but boy, that's the bar.
But that's the bar. That's the expectation. And I think that we are so far from that expectation in our culture and society. Like,
yes.
The expectation is almost that your kids are disrespectful to you.
Absolutely.
People laugh it off all of the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's just a teenager. That's the way that they talk to mom and dad, I guess. And I'm like, no, I mean,
they
it is,
hate
but
me
only
now.
because, they hate me now. But only because you have accepted lies and labels and you're not holding them accountable for their actions. We have to have discipline and correction and accountability.
Yes.
If we hope for our kids to ever grow into the people that God has designed them to be.
Yes.
And I also think coming back to the idea that Western society really is aimed at breaking down the nuclear family. We also have believed this lie that once kids are done with high school, once they're 18, you're out.
Yeah.
Right? There's no more living at home. How did we get this idea?
Mm-hmm.
So your brain actually isn't even fully mature until your mid-20s. So I understand, sure. I'm not saying, parents, you need to keep your kids under your care and in your house until your mid-20s. I get it. If they have a plan and they're going off to school, they're going off to do missions work, they have a plan. Oh, awesome. Again, if you've been prayerful and that's the way that God is leading you. But for the most part, like up to 50% of kids go into college with an undecided major. Up to 75% of them switch their major at least one time before they even graduate. So I think that all comes back to the expectation. What's the expectation? 18, you're out of the house, you're on your own, get gone, right?
Spend 12 years not learning how to learn and then figure everything out.
And then figure everything out all on your own. See you later. Let me know how it goes. Well, like, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
So if you don't know exactly what you want to do at 18, I mean, we're telling all of our kids, stay here.
Cool. Yeah.
Stay here till you figure it out.
Right.
Continue to learn, continue to explore, continue to press into God. You can stay here as long as you absolutely want to. And as long as you're still being productive,
yes,
we will absolutely support you. And almost no other country, even today, I've talked a little bit about like what it's looked like in history, but even today, America is just about the only country that operates that way.
Wow.
Pretty much every other country operates on a nuclear family understanding. And we're going to support each other. We're going to make sure that you're provided for and have a plan before you leave out. We're not just kicking you out and saying, hey, let me know how it all turns out for you. My job's done. I mean, I would say as parents, your job's never done.
No.
Your job's never done.
Nope.
And so, I mean, I would absolutely take a sustainable future built on a firm foundation, even if they don't launch until they're 25 or 26. I'll take that every single day over floundering independence that's just built on hopes and dreams and probably a mountain of debt.
For sure.
Every single day. Yeah. So just to summarize, education has to be centered on God. It's got to start with God. It's got to end with God. It's got to be refocused on God whenever we get off track. Let them learn through play, especially whenever they're little, right? Hands-on experiences, no matter what age they are. And then, learn who God designed them to be. Learn the skills and the anointing that God has put on them. And then specifically, individually, train them in those areas. Not every kid was meant to do the same exact thing, so not every kid is going to need the exact same training.
That's right.
And the only way to do that is to be present and be invested. Even if you're partnering with someone else, like a Christian school or like an online school maybe, to do the education, you have to be present. You have to be invested, because God gave those kids to you to raise. God did not give them to the school to raise. He gave them to you to raise. So you have to know what they're learning, how they're doing, who they're growing into, and help them to figure out how to do what God called them to do.
That's right. And you can do it. Even if it seems impossible or overwhelming, because we've been there.
Yeah.
God makes a way. Press into him. Let him lead you. If you feel a stirring in your heart, if you already know, if you feel conviction over this because you think that you should have been doing something different, or things aren't the way that they should be, and you had an idea of what would be better, that's probably God. And he will lead you. If you are aligning your ideals with his word, he will come through on that for you.
Yeah. So don't let a lack of education, don't let your own lack of education stop you from educating your kids.
Amen.
Don't let a fear of financial lack keep you from putting your kids into a system that you know is what's right for them.
That's right.
Do not let the enemy steal an education away from them that God has put it in your heart that you want to provide for them.
And if you have a testimony of stepping out in faithfulness like that, when you didn't think you had the financial provision, or you didn't think that you had the education to homeschool, please put that in the comments. Encourage other people. We want this to be a community where we have real testimonies shared, because there is power in those testimonies.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, if you would, subscribe, comment, share, and make this more of a conversation just outside of her and I. We would love to have you join us.
Yeah. Hopefully you can't see my socks.
You can absolutely see your socks.
It's real life. You want to roll it down?
I can't believe you didn't change your socks.
I did. I intentionally put these on because they were warm.
You asked me, does this look okay? And I said, yeah, everything except for your socks. You should change those.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
I wrote it down. I don't think you can.
Yeah. Now it just looks like a droopy sock.
I feel like you can't see it.
You're definitely going to be able to see it.
Well, Zachary, it's so much work to get down there and do something.
Okay.